Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Alicia Watley.
I'm Tim Havler.
And I'm Mike Broad.
So, Tim, what's today's scenario?
The insured had a detached garage, which they never used. So one day they decided to spiff it up and remodel it, spent $50,000 to turn it into a very passable AirBNB rental.
Cool.
It never occurred to them that the insurance situation might change, so they never notified their insurance company and still just had their standard homeowners form. It was the 2011 ISO HO3. One day a lightning strike hit the garage. It was a day when there were no guests present or booked.
Thank
Luckily.
goodness.
The garage caught fire, burned to the ground, along with the furniture inside of it and a 120-year-old oak tree that was standing next to it.
Hmm.
The insured submitted a claim under their 2011 ISO HO3. The adjuster is reviewing the claim. The adjuster is wondering if a coverage B garage as an AirBNB rental can be covered under the form, and what about the coverage C furniture inside of it? Well, we have a
Interesting.
Yes.
good first party question here today, and today's episode is all about home sharing, Airbnb and Verbo and Wimdu and all the others. Some people love them, some people hate them. I use them. I more or less like them. I've had a couple questionable experiences, but I like having the kitchen when I travel. That's my favorite part about them.
Well, you know, Airbnb used to be a nice alternative until they asked me to clean their house before I left.
Seriously? I thought that was part of the deal, that they take care of that.
Oh, now there are like cleaning fees, and then there are all these rules where you can't do this, and you can't run the dishwasher, you can't use this, and it's like, well, what's the point? Anyway.
And those cleaning fees can get big, and they hit you right at the end. Although I think I
Mhm.
just saw they're changing that now. So when you browse, they should show up in the first
Mhm.
price you see.
Yep. So, but an Airbnb in a garage, interesting, with $50,000 worth of work.
Yeah.
$50,000 worth of work.
But I guess the first thing that kind of comes to my mind, Tim, is now we're talking strictly for first party coverage for those materials. So there's nothing there that says the insured doesn't own it. Coverage B's for appurtenant structures, which this is. And the personal property is a personal property. Could have had furniture stored there, no, it wouldn't have been an issue. So just because it's an Airbnb, does that change anything, you think? I don't know.
Oh, it does. It does.
Oh,
And this is one where we gotta read close.
okay.
Mhm.
This is one where we gotta pay attention.
Well, you know how much I hate those two things, reading and paying attention. So
Okay, well, I can make it easier on you. I
thank
can
you.
isolate right where we need to go. So coverage B, other structures it's called, that would be the detached garage. It's not
Right.
part of the coverage A because it's separate.
Mhm.
Says we do not cover other structures rented or held for
Hmm.
rental to any person not a tenant of the dwelling.
Whoops.
Wait a minute. Not a tenant of the dwelling.
Right, so if you're renting to anyone who isn't a tenant of the dwelling, which we are doing with Airbnbs. No, it wasn't rented the day of the lightning strike, but it said rented or held for rental. So when you put
Mhm.
up your home on Airbnb, you're holding it up for rental. I mean, I'm going to assume that they tried to rent it on this day and just no one took it. So,
Mhm.
um, and then there's also no coverage for other structures from which business is conducted.
Hmm.
And yeah, you could say that this is probably their business.
It's a
So, but
side
especially because of
business.
that first one, the
Wasn't
held
their
for
main.
rental.
Wait a minute, Tim. I got to stop you right here. It's not their main job. Our insured's there. He was a computer technologist or something. So he just had this
Aha.
as his little side hustle to earn a few extra dimes.
So you're going with the hobby argument.
Well, sort of.
But under the
Mhm.
2011
Oh,
HO3, a property, even though if there's a monetary threshold, I think it's a couple $1,000s. where if you got that much in compensation from that property over the last year, it's considered business property if you use it primarily for that purpose,
Gotcha.
which when you're renting out a garage, you're using it
Mhm.
primarily to make money for it.
All right. So my Airbnb is not that popular, Tim. I've only had two people that have stayed at it, and I've only earned
Uh-huh.
$152.
Oh,
I okay now?
then you could say it doesn't fall under the definition of business, but we got to go right back to the first thing we said, which was rented or held for rental, no coverage B.
All
No
right.
matter
So,
how little you've made
right,
on that
money doesn't
rental.
matter for that first one. So,
Mhm. It's
unfortunately, this
Mhm.
is a big loss for them for which they will not be getting coverage, at least for the garage.
Well, what about the
Okay. Yeah.
contents then? My couch. My couch could be
Okay.
not only rented, but I used it too. When the place wasn't rented, I went up there and watched football games. So it was my rental slash man cave. Tim.
Okay, so we have coverage C furniture
Mhm.
inside the garage.
Right.
Now we got to be careful and read closely through coverage C, and it says no coverage for property in an apartment regularly held, regularly rented, or held for rental to others.
Well, thankfully, it wasn't regularly rented. I told you I've only rented it twice in the 20 years I've had it
Well, I
open.
think there's a bigger issue here, and that's I don't
Oh,
think it's an apartment.
ooh, yeah, right. Right, Tim. That's what I meant to say. It's not an apartment. It's just a man cave slash place that people can hang at for a price sometimes.
Because quite honestly, we don't know what was in this garage. It's usually you think apartment, you think kitchen, you think bathroom, you think things that make an apartment. A hot stove and a microwave ain't a kitchen.
Yeah, and I think an apartment is one unit inside of a bigger building.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Uh, so if it's your garage and it's only one living space, I mean it's debatable, but I think that would be a reasonable interpretation of apartment. It would give the benefit of the doubt to the insured. So conservatively, I think you could say that the furniture is actually covered, which is strange because we just said the garage wasn't. But when we read the policy closely, coverage C probably does apply. Now, we got to get back to the business special limit again.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So while the furniture may be covered for all the reasons we just talked about, it's probably capped at the business special limit, which is going to be $3,000 in the 2011 edition.
Plenty of money. I picked up that couch on the side of the road on trash day, so no problems.
You got it for a profit. There you go, free. So we're going over all this coverage, the ISO HO3. But does Airbnb provide its own insurance that comes into
Yeah,
play?
they should.
Hmm. Yes, they
Mm,
do. They do have their own insurance. They're adamant that it's not insurance what they
mm,
provide. But when you hear
okay.
about the program, it sounds a lot like insurance.
Insurance.
Huh.
So they have liability and property insurance. They have something called hosts, and this is for all Airbnb hosts. It's not like an opt-in pay more program. This covers everybody.
Mhm.
Host liability insurance provides hosts with $1 million in coverage for their liability to a guest, and then host damage protection, $3 million for damage to the host's own property caused by a guest or their pets during a stay. During a stay.
Ooh, so we might be in
Mm.
trouble
So
there.
Mother Nature has nothing to do with this, huh?
So I'm gonna
Unless she was
guess
staying there.
if we contacted Airbnb about this and said, "Hey, do you guys have any coverage for this?" And they would say, "Well, did it occur during a stay?" It
Ye-
did not.
Yes,
So that's why
yeah,
we've
yeah, it did.
that's why we've landed on the homeowners policy.
Mm.
And then I could also tell them though that I wouldn't have to tell them that couch I got for free from the side of the road. I would, of course, say it was very highbrow, very expensive piece of lovely furniture
Mhm.
because I'd only want the
I'm,
best for my Airbnb
I'm
guests.
sure it
But
was.
we don't have to go there because yeah, it wasn't rented at the time, so looks like we might be in trouble.
Okay.
Ooh, I had a question.
Okay.
Mhm.
There was damage to the oak tree that had nothing to do with the Airbnb.
Hmm.
It was damaged. It's my property too. If I was that homeowner, my poor tree. It was hit by lightning. It was totally destroyed. It was 120 years old. And Tim, I can't begin to explain how much we love that tree and how much it upsets me that it was damaged and hurt by lightning. Is that
Well,
covered?
lucky for you,
Mhm.
there is coverage for trees
Yes.
under the homeowner's policy for only a few perils. You only get fire, lightning, explosion, riot, aircraft,
Malicious mischief.
vehicles. Yes, yes,
There you
vandalism,
Yay.
go.
malicious mischief is one.
Yes.
So if someone got on your property and destroyed that tree, you'd get coverage for that. Oh, and theft is the other one. Now it's going to be hard to steal a 120-year-old oak tree, but I did mention lightning in that
Mhm,
list,
Yes.
so it's covered.
mhm,
But it's at least in the 2011 form, it's maximum $500 per tree. So I
mm.
don't even know how you go calculate the ACV of a
A
100 plus
tree.
year old oak tree, but
They're
if
expensive.
it's more than $500, well, you're only getting $500 for that.
It's something. So that makes me feel better,
Mhm.
Tim. Thank you.
Awesome. So I have a question. So say this lightning strike happened while you did have guests, but they were happened to be out and they left behind something like a cell phone or, their luggage or whatever. Is there any coverage?
Hmm.
Okay, well, if it was during a stay, maybe we could go to Airbnb first, because remember their policy did provide, or their non-insurance said that it covers damage, although I believe that's caused by a guest
Yeah.
during the stay. So, you know what? Let me change your hypothetical to make it cleaner. Let's
Okay.
say that the guest had left; they were done. They got on the plane and went home, but they left their cell phone in the garage.
How do you
Saying
check
so
onto the plane?
because they were
They were
70 years old and they like printing their boarding pass before they go to the airport.
Hey, I like printing my boarding pass too, Tim.
Okay,
So,
okay, old man.
oh, I still go to the kiosk and print my boarding pass
Thank you,
every
Tim.
time. I don't like holding
Yeah,
up my phone to the thing. It never, you gotta keep it lit.
right.
Travel more. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so
Anyway,
going back.
so question is, it's a property of others question. Can you cover property belonging to others under your own homeowner's policy? You can, as long as it's on the premises when the loss occurs. But again, let's read the fine print in the policy. We do not cover property of roomers, boarders, or other tenants.
Hmm.
So he's out of
Rumors
luck.
and border. I don't know. That
He's out
is
of luck.
that.
I think he's out of luck. I'm
Oh,
aware of no case law interpreting those terms in insurance policies, but roomers, boarders, other tenants sounds like Airbnb guest to me.
Mhm.
all right. Ooh,
All right. So I have a question because it's all about money, money, money.
right.
So my garage slash Airbnb burned down, and I'm missing out on the $152 that I got, and could be missing out on some for about 6 months. Any help for me?
Now we're going to fair rental value coverage.
Yes.
Loss of rents that you could have collected, and you were relying on that income, but now you can't collect it anymore.
Mhm.
Okay, we got to go through one more policy language passage here. So, if a loss covered under Section 1 makes that part of the residence premises rented to others or held for rental by you not fit to live in, we cover the fair rental value of such premises less any expenses that do not continue
Hmm.
while it is not fit to live in. So, probably no coverage here. You could nitpick on the policy language a little bit, but it said it was triggered by a loss covered under Section 1. And we said that the garage was not covered. We said the furniture was covered. Does that
Mhm.
trigger your loss of rents? I think that would be a hard argument to make. The reason you can't rent out your garage is because the garage burned down. It's the furniture, you could replace that very quickly. This ongoing
Mhm.
loss of rents really is connected to the garage, which was an excluded loss.
Mm.
Makes sense. Can I ask a question, Alicia?
Absolutely.
My turn. I'm curious, Tim. What about, ISO is always coming out with new language. especially to help modernize things like Airbnb. So, is there any kind of new language out there? Any kind of home sharing specific kind of language that's bantied about in the market anywhere that you're aware of?
Yes, there is.
All right.
And if you felt confused at all during this podcast with all the policy terms we threw out,
Mhm.
room or border, apartment, et cetera, you kind of got the feeling that the older language it wasn't fitting with the Airbnb scheme very well.
Mhm.
Fortunately, we are increasingly seeing specific policy language using the term home sharing activities. So perfect. It's now written straight into the base HO3, starting with ISO's 2022 edition. They had endorsements before that, but I didn't think they were used all that often. Now with the 2022, it's right in the base form. If our insured had that newer form, the 2022, there's very clearly no coverage for the garage, no coverage for the furniture, no coverage for the guest cell phone, no coverage for the lost rents. Again, it's all connected to home sharing activities, which is
Mhm.
defined and mostly excluded. Oh, there is also new endorsements that give you coverage for these things. Say you're an Airbnb host and you want that coverage, you
Mhm.
can buy a special endorsement for that for an extra premium, I assume.
So, Tim, what can we take away from this scenario?
To recap, the insured converted their detached garage into an Airbnb rental, which burned after being struck by lightning. Under the ISO 2011 HO3, there would be no coverage for the garage, probably no coverage for the loss of rents, probably no coverage for the guest's left behind cell phone. There could be coverage for the furniture, but we would need to look closely at the business special limit to see if there is a strict monetary limit on that. Under the newest HO3, the 2022 edition,
Mhm.
none of those things would be covered because there are clear exclusionary references to home sharing activities.
Oh, but the tree would
Awesome.
still be covered, right?
But the tree would still be covered.
Thank goodness.
Good point.
Buy some seeds, grow it again, and ho- and ho-
120 years.
and,
It's a
and
lot of
hope
history in that tree.
and hope that the great grandchildren enjoy it.
Right.
They would- I think that's a couple of generations, yeah.
Works for me.
And thanks everyone for listening to today's scenario. If you're a PLRB member who wants to know more, head over to plrb.org and sign in with your company email. You may be an employee of PLRB's member company and not even realize it, so make sure to check it out. And to learn more, Tim, where can we find it?
Can log into plrb.org and access our legal materials. Specifically, you can check out our FAQ page going through the common issues that come up with home sharing, both first party and third party. We have breakdown and analysis of the new 2022 ISO form and its references to home sharing activities. And all of our annotations have been updated with the new language with discussions about how it impacts coverage.
Awesome. And all of the links can be found under the show notes. So be sure to follow us on LinkedIn for educational clips. Check out the video version of this podcast on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast feed. Thanks, Tim and Mike, for your time.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.